What's up, everybody? It's Chad. I'm back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. And speaking of, October 26th is going to be the last episode of this season 1. We're going to be close to 40 episodes. Holidays are coming, and we'll pick it right back up sometime in January or whatever. And we'll have new content, new guests, and everything. So only a couple more episodes left for this season, and then we'll call it quits for holidays, and we'll call it back again. So season 2. It will be coming soon. And as you guys notice, I have a new guest with me in person today. Welcome to my friend Mercedes. Thank you for joining me today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to have you here. She works for Cinder. And speaking of, we'll just go ahead and start talking about Cinder. Cinder's a cannabis company. And actually, I will let you tell us who Cinder is.
So Cinder started in Spokane, Washington.
Okay.
And we have 3 stores up there.
Mm-hmm.
About a year ago, they came down into New Mexico and they opened a store in Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're looking at opening a store here in Cruces.
Oh, cool.
So we don't have an official opening date yet, but we're looking somewhere between like 30 to 45 days.
Okay.
So y'all can keep an eye out for us.
Nice, cool, yeah. And actually, I met you at the event that last week on Friday. You know, the cannabis market, pretty much, is what we had here in Cruces. That was pretty cool, and it was cool to touch you there. You know, you're really to touch up there. Excuse me. I was like, whoa. To touch base and everything there. You know what's going on, and to meet you and to kind of see what you're about. You know, you're really passionate about cannabis and the industry, and you kind of just showed up out of nowhere because you're from Texas, right?
Yeah, so I've actually only been here about 2 weeks.
And at the time, it had been like a week.
Yeah, and so it was about a week when I met you.
Yeah.
I came here for Cinder, and they hired me as the general manager for the new store here in Cruces. So I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome.
Really excited to be opening a store and getting into the cannabis industry.
Awesome. Hey, I am too. I'm excited to see what you guys are, going to bring to the table and everything. And speaking of, what's your guys' plan really for doing something for the community, like the local community and everything?
So as of right now, obviously we don't have like a concrete plan just because we're not open yet, but we do plan on doing something with the community. I know we do a lot of, up in Albuquerque, they do a lot with, I think, homeless. They'll they'll gather products for homeless and hand them out. And then I know down here we were talking about maybe doing more stuff with patients.
Okay. Some advocacy work.
Yeah. Nice.
That's always nice to see when companies especially want to jump in and work with the advocacy, because it's really hard to get people to advocate, especially here in New Mexico. So it's great to see that a company coming from out of state is willing to do that too. And they understand that when you come into somewhere new, especially like New Mexico, because we don't like outsiders, you're going to have to really work to get into the community, and so you guys understand that. So that's great. And working with the community is one way to do that. So it's great to see. And you guys are willing to support New Mexico and everything. So that's cool. And do you know where the location is going to be at?
Yes. So we're going to be on Sonoma Drive. There's a strip center right next to Popeyes.
Yes.
So we're going to be right in that strip center.
Okay, so you guys are going to be a little bit up more into town. Okay, cool. So there's really not many places up that way, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited to try to be one of the first ones over there.
I'm excited for you guys too, because that's somewhere that in town that's really underserved. It's so clustered in other parts of town, even like on Loman. There's a bunch on Loman. There's a bunch on Valley. There's a bunch right here, we're right in front of the radio station, really, where we're recording. I think there's like 3 within like a couple hundred feet. So it's a little oversaturated right now, and we all know that. It's a kick in a dead horse at that point.
Well, that's something that a lot of people told me on Friday night too. Is just like, hey, we live right there. So they're really excited about that.
That's cool.
Having one on that side of town.
No, definitely, because I thought about that. And there's people who have lived over there for many years, and I'm like, well, now things are kind of like going up there store-wise, restaurant-wise. There should be some dispensaries. So I'm glad you guys are kind of filling that void. Is really what I'm saying. So that's great. Where can people really find Cinder, right now? I know you guys don't really have any product out here or anything, so there's really not much to like really touch base on that. But where can they find you guys online, website, social media?
So we do have a website. You can just Google Cinder Cannabis and you'll find it. And then we also have a Instagram page, and it's cinder.LC.
Okay.
That is our Las Cruces Instagram page, and through that page we're going to be making announcements as far as grand opening, stuff like that.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
pay attention to the Instagram more or less.
Yeah.
That's what I try to tell people with this podcast and everything is like pay attention to some of my socials because I will put information out or changes or something. And you know, if you just try to watch the show, sometimes you're not going to get everything. And you know, my show's once a week, and you know, things happen every day.
Yeah,
So you know, there's times where I'm like, hey, this is happening. I might talk about it next week, but it's happening this week. So it's cool that you guys are doing that and you're going to keep, you know, everyone up to date what's going on. So that's great. And, you know, and you said about 30, 40 days you guys are probably looking about.
That's the goal. I mean, hey, maybe we'll get lucky and it'll happen sooner.
Yeah.
But about 30 to 45 days.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, that's great. I can't wait to have you back on once you guys are open and running. And the reason why I have her here today is for the special part of the episode. And as you guys see, the title, Save the Boobies, it's for a particular reason. So we will move on to the next part of the episode. And we will bring Cinder Cannabis on once you guys are operating. So thank you for talking about that. So we're going to talk about breast cancer now, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I really don't want to like talk for you. I really want you to, you know, introduce yourself fully now and let everybody know your story and everything. So go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you for, first, I just want to thank you too for allowing me on this platform to talk about this subject, raise a little bit of awareness and support for the community. I know it's not an easy thing to talk about, but I am a pretty open person, so I'm always willing to share. So I do want to kind of give a full disclaimer. I am not a doctor or medical professional of any kind. These are just my experiences as a regular person. And I do understand that everybody's experiences are different. And if I don't communicate something maybe in a way that, in the best way, I mean no offense by it. That is not my intent. I just want to share my experiences in hopes to help somebody else.
Definitely.
So my journey kind of started back in 2019. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, and right away she had surgery, and she was diagnosed with stage 3. It took a little bit of time. I never realized it, but it took some time to figure out like which stage it was. It actually took a couple weeks, but it was stage 3. So after that diagnosis, her doctor, she had a really awesome doctor, and he was very adamant on doing genetic testing.
Okay.
Because he wanted to know what he was working with and know what he was dealing with for the best way to treat her. So through that genetic testing, we found out that she was BRCA positive. And some people call it the breast cancer gene.
Well, could you, for the guests, you know, explain what that means?
Yeah, so BRCA, we call it BRCA. It is a gene that, it's a genetic mutation that puts you at higher risk for breast cancer as well as other cancers. There's about 1 in 500 women who carry this gene. That's the current statistic. I believe I got that off of the CDC's website last night. I wanted to make sure that I had like the most accurate information.
And that's according to CCD, so you know it's.
So anyways, with this genetic mutation, a woman will have about a 45 to an 85% chance of developing breast cancer throughout her lifetime. The older she gets, the higher that risk gets. With that gene as well, it makes it harder for your body to fight off the tumors.
Got it. Okay.
And it almost makes your body like a friendly host for them, and they just kind of spread like wildfire.
Okay.
So it's definitely a scary thing when you have that gene. So because with that gene, you have a 50% chance of passing it on to your offspring. So her doctor suggested that all of her offspring get tested. At the time, you know, we're dealing with mom going through chemo and all that stuff. I'm sure anybody listening who has dealt with anybody going through cancer and dealt with chemo, they know how involved it is. And I didn't get tested right away because I was focused on other things, like didn't quite see the importance yet. She did end up going into remission by the end of 2019. So in 2020, it was January 2020, because I actually have a sister who I'm very fortunate because she happens to be a healthcare professional at a breast cancer facility.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and she, like, you know, she might know a thing or two. Don't tell her I said that because I'm always picking on her. That's one of my favorite pastimes.
She might know her shit, but, you know.
She might know a thing or two. But she was on me, and she was just like, you need to get tested. You need to get tested. And she did not let up. And I'm grateful that she didn't let up because I finally gave in and I went and got the test. So you could do the test one of two ways. You can either do a blood test or you can spit in a little tube.
So which one did you do?
I spit in the tube.
Okay.
I don't like needles. I don't like needles.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
spit in a tube. Anyways, it took a few weeks, but the test came back, and it came back positive.
Unfortunately.
Yes, that was a rough pill for me to swallow because all of a sudden you're not invincible anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was in February of 20 that I found that out. And we all know what happened in March of 20.
Yeah. There's no need to say
shut
that.
down.
Yeah.
So, you know, I couldn't go meet with the genetic counselor who did my testing. I wasn't able to meet with her. You know, I wasn't able to get out in the community and find other women who were dealing with either either cancer or even just like a genetic mutation like I was. And I've really felt like I wanted to find somebody who was around my age who had to make some of these tough decisions.
Yeah.
So I was kind of in the dark for, I would say, about a year. I was kind of in the dark. And then in March of 21.
Okay, so like a year later, yeah.
It was a year later, yeah. I finally got to go see my genetic counselor. And there were a lot of scans, blood work. You know, for anybody that's listening, if you've ever had a breast MRI, like, you know how uncomfortable that is. It sucks. Like, scanxiety is a real thing, right? Yeah. So that was in March of 2021. Everything came back good. And I actually, at the time, I had a buddy, and he had convinced me to go volunteer at this beer festival.
All right.
So the beer festival was like, it was benefiting a local breast cancer foundation.
Okay.
And so we thought, well, if we go, maybe we can meet some women there and maybe I can connect with some of them. So that was like the whole idea behind it. So I went to this beer festival and I was serving beers.
Okay, nice.
But I was able to meet the founder of that charity organization.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So I was able to meet her. At the time, she was in her early 40s, and she had been battling breast cancer for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she had been battling it for 8 years, and she happened to be BRCA positive as well.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go.
Like, the emotions that I had when I met her, like, I just couldn't help but cry. She immediately, she wasn't shy. She immediately pulled out her phone and started showing me pictures of, you know, just what all her surgeries and what she had been through. And she didn't leave anything out.
Yeah.
You know, she wanted to show me that I didn't have anything to worry about. Like, hey, here's what it's going to look like. And that was actually really huge because it's kind of, you don't know. It's that unknown. So she was able to answer some of those questions for me. But so from there, you know, we'd had a lot of conversations, a lot of text messages, FaceTime calls, regular phone calls. I think we met up a few times also. And she was always very supportive of whatever I decided. Yeah. Because she made it clear that there is no right or wrong decision and that it was only my decision to make. Nobody else's. Yeah. Nobody else's vote mattered. Yeah. Only mine.
True.
So it was in August of 21 that I decided to go ahead and have a prophylactic bilateral mastectomy with reconstruction.
Can you explain that for me and for the
Yes.
audience?
So that is basically a preventative. It's a preventative surgery, and so I had both of my breasts removed.
Okay.
In basically to bring down my risk, and with that, my risk dropped dramatically.
Okay, that's good.
So they just. I wanted to make this decision on my terms. And I didn't want to. I felt like my body was a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of other BRCA positive people say that they feel like their boobs were trying to kill them.
Okay.
That's something that is kind of said
It's a
a
new
lot
saying for killer boobs, but all
yeah.
right. Yeah.
I've never thought about that. But yeah, that's definitely something that is said a lot. I think you can even get it like on shirts and hats and stuff. But I felt like it was a ticking time bomb, and I really wanted to keep my nipples. Like,
yeah, who wouldn't, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And so like if I had a cancer diagnosis, we don't know if that would be an option. At that point, like whatever the doctors say is kind of.
Yeah, and you at least have the option at that time. Okay, so
I did go into surgery. It was a successful surgery. I came out with 2 nipples.
Oh, good! Congratulations,
So, yes.
And not 3.
Yeah, I didn't add any.
Yeah, that's good.
So it was a successful surgery. After that, we I also around that time of talking to Jen, I got involved with her foundation, and I met a lot of really awesome women. I call them my breasties. I mean, why not?
Yeah, it's perfect.
So I actually got permission from one of them to talk about her journey, and so my friend Caitlin, she is 31.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, she was 31 at the time of her diagnosis. She's I believe she's 33 now.
Okay.
And she was breastfeeding her child, and she started to feel something like a tingle in her armpit, and that's when she went to go get it checked out. Is when she felt that tingle. It wasn't really even in her breast area; it was in her armpit.
Yeah.
And when she did that, that's when she found out that she had stage 4 HER2 positive breast cancer.
And what does that mean, essentially?
I think we all know, the 1, 2, 3, 4 stages.
Yes.
So HER2 positive, that is it's considered a genetic mutation.
Okay.
That genetic mutation is it's not something that's passed down like the BRCA gene. That one is, I'm not a doctor. I'm not exactly sure how that mutation ends up in a woman's body.
That to me sounds more or less like an independent mutation that happens.
Yes.
For whatever reason. I mean, our DNA in our body does it. It's crazy. So it just sounds like something just went whack in her body, and unfortunately.
Yeah. So her doctor did do genetic testing on her, and that's how she found out that she was HER2 positive. Because again, they want to know, what are they dealing with? What's the best way to treat this? So she's always been really big on telling people, if you feel anything at all, go get it checked out. Don't hesitate. Don't let them tell you that you're too young.
Yeah.
Whether it be for breast cancer or any kind of cancer. Don't let them tell you that, because cancer does not discriminate.
No, not at all. I mean, it takes children out all the time.
It does not discriminate. So if you feel like something isn't right, go get it checked.
Awesome.
Advocate for yourself, because nobody is going to advocate for you like you will. Another thing too is, if you feel like maybe you're not satisfied with an answer, or maybe you still feel unsure, go get a second opinion.
Yeah.
I know people that getting that second opinion saved their life.
Yeah. And you can do that pretty much with anything medical,
Yes.
And I recommend you do that with anything medical. If you have one doctor and you've been to that doctor so many years, but they're just telling you something you just think, and in your mind just isn't right, go get a second opinion, go get a third opinion.
Absolutely.
You know, if that's the way you want to go about it, because, you know, not every doctor is going to have the same opinion, you know, and sometimes they're just trying to figure out what's wrong with you, and it's their opinion until they do more testing, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's good that, you know, you're telling people to get testing. You know, if you feel something, go get it tested. And if you don't feel that doctor is really being thorough, et cetera, seek another one. That's the reason why there are different doctors out there. Unfortunately, in the area, we do lack a lot of cancer doctors and stuff like that. So some people have to end up going to Phoenix or something like that to seek treatment or seek doctors. So if that's your issue or whatever, I do know that there's really good doctors in Phoenix. Unfortunately, we haven't opened that thing here in New Mexico yet for cancer, and hopefully we do, and hopefully that changes in the future because, you know, I'm from the area that's called, well, that they call the downwinders because of the nuclear fallout from the nuclear tests. And so where I'm from, there's a lot of cancer-ridden people. Even my aunt, she's battling cancer right now as we speak. And so, yeah, she's been battling it for a while, and I don't really talk about it a lot, but, you know, she is a part of Downwinders. She was born in like 1939, so a couple years right before they did the blast. And so her whole life, you know, she kind of spent exposed to that. And so I kind of feel New Mexico is one of those places that need something like that, just for the fact that we've done so much government testing that we kind of need something to assist us here with that. But I don't want to get off the subject of breast cancer or anything, but you know, that just goes and falls within it. You know, if you guys, this goes for any cancer really, you know, but this just happens to be October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And, you know, women, if you're out there and they show how to do examinations online. I don't have breasts or anything.
Feel them on first.
There you go. See, there you go. She knows all that stuff, and that's why I pointed to you. I was like, you could probably give some good tips, not me. So I don't know.
You know, another thing too is don't be afraid to be proactive about your health. Even if you don't feel anything, but you just want to know what your genetics are, go get a genetic test.
Oh yeah. And for people out there with genetic testing, what do they do when they genetic test? You're talking about the blood and the spit, and that's really all they do?
Yeah, so if you have any, like, if you have any cancers in your family that you want to go get that genetic test for, you can talk to your doctor, and they can point you in the right direction.
Okay, cool. So that's kind of where I was leading to, is, you know,
and you
where
don't have to use a needle.
Oh, see, there you go. You just spit. If, you know, if that grosses you out too, I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, it's like probably that much. You had to like fill that sucker up.
Holy crap. Have something sour. Or watch something really delicious. I don't know.
That was hilarious.
But yeah, you know, genetic testing, it seems like it's very important. And, you know, and this is something new to me. I didn't even know that they could do that these days. Yes. So I'm learning something with all of y'all out there. You know, some of you probably know this. You know, obviously cancer isn't my profession. So I'm not going to know this, and, you know, I'm glad that we're bringing someone on who's dealt with this and everything. So that's great. What other testing do they really provide? Do you know of?
As far as
like not just genetic testing, like, you know, is it called the mammogram when they test?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
so stuff like that.
So they can do mammograms, breast sonograms, or breast MRIs.
Okay.
So depending on the age of a woman, this is what I was told by my genetic counselor. Depending on the age of a woman, they will pick which one to do.
Okay.
So generally, I think 30 is the cusp. So if you're below 30, they prefer to do breast MRI or sonogram. Okay. Because your breast doesn't have as much fatty tissue. Okay. And so once you have more fatty tissue, then the mammogram is they can better see what's in there. And
for the ignorant fellas out there, what is a mammogram and what entails in the mammogram?
So it's basically, they basically squish your boob and like take scans of it. Okay. Yeah. Now the breast MRI, that one I've been fortunate. I haven't had to have a mammogram, and I won't have to either because I went with implants. But we can get to that in a minute. So I had to do the breast MRI, which was super uncomfortable. They have you on this table, and they have like these two holes. Okay. Yeah. Like, so you lay face down with your arms above your head, and you're there for like 30, 45 minutes.
Oh wow! There's the holes. Is it like a hole like it just hangs through, or is it like a
yeah, no, it hangs through.
Oh, that's funny. You're like, what is this, a torture device?
Hey, we're answering questions.
Yeah, it's science. Science, it's weird sometimes. They say truth is weirder than fiction, or stranger than fiction, and that's a new one for me. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the other tests. Did you mention another one after that, or was that the last one?
Sonogram. I don't know how common that one is.
Uh-huh.
They've never asked me to do that one.
Yeah.
But I know that the two big ones really are mammogram and that breast MRI.
Yeah, because I've only heard, like family members and everything, talk about mammograms in passing.
Yes.
That's the only reason why I knew anything about it. And I was like, that sounds really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather them, tell me cough, cough, versus, getting something squished. That doesn't sound very fun at all.
Yeah.
So
I guess they I don't know. Like I said, I've never had to have a mammogram, but I guess the squish is real.
the squish is real. Oh, that's great. So it's great that we're sharing this information, so that way there's less taboo.
Yes.
And it should be talked about more, and it should be something that comes up in conversation. Because I should, as a person, I feel like I should know a little bit about it, because I have women in my family. I have sisters. I have my mother. I have female cousins, and they should be able to feel comfortable to talk about this to anybody that they care about.
Absolutely.
And this is great, because I'm learning too, and I can now go tell my sister, go get tested. Genetic testing to see, if she has breast cancer, like hopefully she doesn't. But I think it'd be great, because, cancer does kind of happen in the family. I wouldn't say it's a genetic thing in the family, but it has happened quite a bit. So,
one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on too is like life after cancer, or after a preventative surgery. I feel like a lot of people kind of have this tendency to say, well, you finished your chemo, you're good. You beat it, you're good.
Yeah.
But what's after that?
Yeah.
Like having that adjustment period of, this is your new life. Your life is different. It's not going to be what it was before. Even just with, what I went through, and just having that removal and reconstruction, I had an adjustment period where I had to get used to, this is my new body. And I have a friend, she's one of my breasties. She lives in Dallas now.
Yeah.
But she had told me, she said, don't be overly critical. Because I think that's a common tendency, is to be overly critical of your reconstructed body parts. And she would always tell me, she's like, they're sisters, not twins. Don't be overly critical.
Same with our boys, so fair enough.
So that kind of stuck with me. But that transition, like it's a real thing. I don't know if maybe my Googling skills just need improvement, but I was not able to find any kind of like breast cancer organization or even cancer organization here in Cruces. But if there is one out there, I would love for y'all to reach out to me. I'd love to be able to volunteer with your organization, even if it is just offering emotional support to a few of y'all's warriors, because I get it. I've been there. I've helped other friends through it, been there for my mom through it. So I would love to be able to be involved if there is something like that out there.
Yeah.
Even if there's not, and somebody has questions or they're just struggling with it, feel free to reach out to me. I can be found on social media. I think you actually tagged me on your social media, so I should be easy to find.
And I'll tag her in this post. And if you guys don't know or know how to get a hold of her, contact me, and then I'll shoot your information to her, vice versa, whatever, and we'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And I second on the support group thing. Like in the medical cannabis world, we had like medical cannabis, pages and groups and supports and stuff like that. So I think that's something great. And we talked about it before, and I'm kind of thinking that maybe some of them are private groups, which makes sense.
That's
something
what
very
I was
private.
wondering too.
Yeah. So if they're private groups, please, she's trying to help you guys, and I kind of feel that a lot of change needs to happen, and I kind of feel that you're motivated enough to make that happen. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Lucky to have you.
So unfortunately, in January of 22, my friend Jen did pass away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And then in February of this year, my mom passed away.
Oh.
So one of the, being here today, again, thank you so much, because I feel like being here today, it's what Jen was a big advocate for breast cancer awareness and support.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that she's happy that I'm here today.
Yeah,
I know she is.
definitely.
You know, like sorry.
No.
One of the last conversations that I had with my mom, we were in the hospital room and we knew that she was really sick and that it was bad. The cancer had it was causing fluid buildup in her lungs and they couldn't really drain it because it would come right back.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was having a hard time breathing, but she kept telling me and my brother, she said, I have to keep fighting. I have to find a cure. And she told me, she said, you're BRCA positive, so that way you'll know what to do and you'll have a chance. That was something that, that was a conversation that we had the last, actually, I think it was the last real conversation that I had with her. And I told her, I said, just the simple fact that I got to find out my genetics,
Mm-hmm.
that gave me a huge leg up. And I'm not, out of respect for her, for so many other women that are battling cancer, I didn't want to ignore that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be proactive in my decisions. So I basically just told her, I said, I've done I'm doing what I need to do. I'm continuing to do what I need to do. I will have tough decisions to face in the future. But I told her I was going to be okay, you know, and I just told her it's okay. You don't have to worry about me. You've given me a huge gift.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reality of it is nobody's getting out of here alive. Let's be honest.
Yeah, we're all on a timer.
Yeah, nobody's getting out of here alive. And I feel like when we turn these negatives into positives, no matter what happens, hope wins and love wins.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for sharing that. That's something very powerful. And a lot of people could take something from that. Sorry, onions somewhere in the building, I guess. And for people out there who have possibly been putting off getting tested, this is something that can possibly change your mind, and make you want to get tested. Because it could save your life. It could save a family member's life. Like just your mom finding that out and that tidbit of information, saved your life.
Yeah.
And that's huge. And she did it
for
the love.
And honestly, like I don't think it set in for me. I don't think it fully set in for me until my mom's cancer came back.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came back, it was just all over her body. It had, like I mentioned earlier, it spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
And I think that was when I realized the seriousness of this genetic mutation with the cancer.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely when I realized it. And then, meeting other women in the community and hearing their stories, it was really powerful for me.
Yeah.
And it was definitely inspiring, and I feel like it kept me on course.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, how does it? So for people who would just find out, and I guess we'll trace back a little bit. I want to touch base on this. So after you find out, like, what are some tips you can give people, mentally and physically, and just all around? What are some first things you could, I guess, give somebody a suggestion to do?
So I mean, obviously, talk to your genetic counselor. My genetic counselor, I love her to death. She's like, she holds it down.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything going on with me, she has it all, and she'll tell, nope, you can't do this because you're BRCA. You got to do this. Like, she's just very knowledgeable. So finding a good genetic counselor is I would say that's very important. But after you get a positive test, take your time. Mm-hmm. and feel all the things that you need to feel. It's okay. Like, it's okay to be sad. Like, everybody has their story. Everybody's going through stuff. Nobody's is more important than somebody else's. Mm-hmm. But work with your genetic counselor. Lean on them. That's what I would say, because what I chose to do may not be what the next woman chooses to do. Mm-hmm. You can do So my options were I could either do what I did, or I could continue to do scans and blood work, and just kind of have that risk.
Yeah.
Every 6 months we do blood work.
So it's pretty much for the rest of your life.
But
You have to kind of.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I mean, that's kind of like the downside to it. But at the same time, it's like, you're at least keeping up with it. So in
yes.
case something does come along, you're on it.
So every 6 months they take 4 tubes of blood from me.
Oh, wow.
They can't use spit. They have to use blood.
Damn.
But they check different tumor markers, and they want to see if any of them spike.
Okay.
And if they spike, then they know, okay, hey, something's wrong. We need to see what's causing this.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's what that every 6 month blood work is for.
Okay. So it's more or less just a kind of just maintenance and make sure everything's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And I'm really glad that you did take the precautions, and pretty much your percentage of getting cancer went from like almost certain to under 10%.
Yeah. It dropped drastically.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So I guess we'll speed up again after really go into that. When someone is, I guess, going through chemo, or even after the fact or before, what are some things you can give people for tips when it comes to cannabis use and either breast cancer or any cancer? But we'll keep it to breast cancer since that's Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
No, absolutely. So I'll mention my mom and then also my friend Caitlin.
Yeah.
So my mom was kind of difficult, and she didn't want to use any cannabis.
Yeah.
But after that, I think it was the second chemo treatment. Because she had her chemo treatments every 3 weeks. Okay. And they were, anybody who's been through chemo, they know it's hard on the body. It's very hard on the body. And she would have a hard time sleeping because she was in a lot of pain. Yeah. And then she would have a hard time eating. So it was just like this vicious cycle. She couldn't eat, she couldn't sleep, she couldn't get rest. So I think it was the second chemo treatment that she was like, okay, whatever, just bring it over.
Yeah, it's like, I'll do anything right now. Jesus.
Yeah, no, that's really what it was. Yeah. And so she started using cannabis just to help her recover from chemo, like to manage the pain, to help her sleep, to help her eat. And because of that, she was able to get her white blood cells back up, so she was ready for the next treatment. Yeah. And because she had a 3-week window in between treatments. Oh,
okay. So essentially, it helped her along with her treatment. So working sideways. That's great to hear. Yeah.
And she even talked to her doctor about it, and her doctor, obviously, like in Texas, it's kind of tricky, but her doctor was very open about it, and he said it will help you. Yeah. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to help you. Cool. And so he recommended that she do it because he knew how hard chemo is.
Yeah. And what was her source of use? Like, what did she use? Oil? Did she use flour?
Flour.
Flour.
Yeah.
It's old school, Granny, huh?
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I always like to ask that question. Like, well, what's your way of use? Do you smoke it? Do you eat it? What is it? So that's cool. And it's the fastest.
For my friend Caitlin, though, she preferred to eat it.
Okay.
So she said that the chemo gave her like a burnt taste in her throat, and so whenever she would smoke it, it just like
lingered.
Yeah.
Made it worse.
Yeah. So she didn't like that. Yeah. But she would take edibles, and then what she would do too is she told me actually didn't know this till a couple days ago. She just told me this. She would use RSO oil, and she would put like a pea-size drop on the edible, and then eat it. Yeah. So that way it would just really knock her out, let her get good sleep, help with her appetite, all that good stuff.
And I was going to ask, like, would you recommend RSO or FICO oil for cannabis patients, like all cannabis patients, or maybe just kind of test it yourself?
I'm not a doctor, so I don't really want to answer that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know everybody's different. My mom never used RSO oil, but I know my friend Caitlin did, so it's just kind of.
And a lot of cancer patients do. A lot of people swear by it and all that. And if you guys don't know, RSO and FICO are literally the same thing. RSO just stands for Rick Simpson oil, and a lot of people really didn't like that term because it's named after a guy. So they went to the FICO oil, term and everything. So now it's kind of what the industry uses. Just so you guys know, it's like, well, what's the difference? There's no difference at all. It's the same thing. So if you are curious about that, there's a lot of things online about FICO, RSO oil. Speak to your doctor as well. Someone who is educated in that piece. Who has a degree. speaking to your doctor about it is probably your best bet. So they can, guide you in the right direction. There's also medical professionals in the cannabis industry who deal with people with cannabis, and cancer and stuff. So they can kind of share with you. I've been fortunate enough to be involved with those people throughout the years, and they've shared things with me throughout, the years and everything too. I'm not saying come ask me questions about it. I'm just saying that there are people out there who can help you, who are knowledgeable in the state even. And so use your resources, and that's your best thing. And that's the best thing that you could do. So yeah, that's great. And cannabis and cancer really go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And that's why when you brought this idea to me, I was like, no, that's great idea. You don't have really, we wouldn't have a medical cannabis program in the first place, especially here in New Mexico, if without cancer. Because the first patients that really used it in the state, and it was actually, we had a program back in the 70s. Yeah, we were actually the very first state to have a medical cannabis program, dating back all the way to the 70s. And it only lasted for maybe about 10 years, and then it dissolved. And then the Linear and Compassionate Use Act came around 2007. But yeah, back then, even in the late 70s, it was for cancer. And actually, the governor's son, he ran for governor a few years ago. He used cannabis to fight his cancer back in the day. So there's a lot of history that goes on with that too. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really
New
neat,
Mexico
though.
and cancer with cannabis, there's a lot of history with it. And
I
so
like that. That's exciting.
it is, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
great to have someone like you here, because you're so passionate about it, and it brings it back to the roots. Like, okay, well, this is what it started as, and this is what it's going to continue as. Because I'm really for patience and everything, and having a card or not, I think that you're more of a patient than some people, because of what you use it for.
Yeah.
And post I guess cancer and everything, or post even after any kind of remission or whatever, what would you say you use afterwards?
So I actually still to this day use it. To answer that, I feel like I need to kind of explain how they did my reconstruction.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, let's dig into that.
Just to better answer it.
Yeah, for sure. Because like some people may be curious.
Yeah. Well,
I'm curious.
Actually, I've gotten that question a lot. Like they want to know how did they do it? Like how did they make a boob out of nothing?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. So educate us here.
Yeah.
How it's made.
And there are different options. This is just the option that I picked. This is the option that was best for me.
Okay.
So what they did was I have an incision pretty much like from here to here. Like it's a pretty long one. And they just kind of like open it up and like scoop everything out, right? So at that point it's just skin.
Yeah.
You still have your muscle, and they if you have skin and you put an implant in there, it's kind of like putting a golf ball in a sock.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So you have to have some kind of support for it. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they take mesh and they wrap the implant in mesh, and then they'll sew it into your muscle.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So it's a long recovery, because like I couldn't raise my arms for like 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Couldn't lift anything. Because you have to let that mesh, like you have to let the muscle and the mesh kind of heal together. But because of that, I end up with a lot of pain from like, sometimes I'll like tweak something or do something, and I just have like a muscle pain in my chest. But it's pretty intense. Yeah. And so I like to use like the balms and like the salves and stuff like that. Did I say that right? Yeah. It sounded weird when I said it. But I like to use, like, that's what I like to use, just because I can apply it directly to that area and it gives me a lot of relief. I also end up with like a little bit of nerve pain. Just like, nerves are like trying to like reconnect. Yeah. And so sometimes I'll use it for that as well. That's honestly my favorite thing to use.
Okay. Makes sense.
Like, I mean, it brings me a lot of relief. And I know that it's not, it allows me to kind of heal after I've hurt the muscle. Yeah. I'm trying to do like stretches and exercises to kind of build it back up so it happens less. Yeah. But in the meantime, that really helps me. Yeah. And, this goes back to something that I try to preach to everybody, especially my veterans, that you can't just use cannabis and expect yourself to get better. Yeah. You have to better yourself, exercising, stretching, things like that. Those are very important things. Eating right. That's another thing, eating better, drinking water, little things like that too. So don't just think that just using cannabis and rub it on yourself, you're going to get better.
she's doing other things on top of it
Yes.
to kind of stand it to help along with it. So that's great that you're doing more than just, I'm just going to put this on here and go about my day and just deal with the pain. It's like, well, I got to do other things to help with it, because I have to do the same thing with like the injuries that I got in the military. I have to, stay pretty much light, so I get it 100%.
I was actually told to try to keep your weight down.
Yeah.
Just with the risks that I have.
100%.
So that was, that was a conversation that my doctor had with me, is like exercise, eating right, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And your doctor will guide you on the right path of where you need to go.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what they did with you, but you listened?
Yeah. Sometimes I listen.
Yeah. Every now and then you tend to listen, and, it seems to help you out and everything. And do you have any tips from other women who, what they use maybe, what helps them along maybe?
Not necessarily. It was honestly like, it was kind of tough finding people that would tell me, like, because I know who used what. Pretty common is flour. Just being from Texas, you don't have the options that you have here.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So pretty common is flour. You can get edibles, oils, but the most common would be flour.
Got it.
Now, one thing that I did buy this week, and I'm kind of excited about trying it, is I bought bath salts. Like, in the infused bath salts. I haven't tried them yet though.
Okay.
But I'm kind of excited about trying that too.
Yeah. Well, let us know how it works. If that kind of helps you out in the whole area that you're talking about hurts and everything.
Yeah.
Because that's great, and someone out there might use the same tips. Might have gone through the same exact reconstructive surgery, and they're not too sure. Like, well, I don't know if I should use a topical or a salve or what's going to help me. So and everyone's different. This is what helps her. It could be different for any of you out there. So that's great that you found relief with cannabis too, especially at the end where you are now.
Yes.
And you are a cannabis user, obviously. So do you smoke flowers still, or you just kind of just do the salves and the rubs?
I do from time to time, but the salves and the rubs are my favorite.
Because it's okay to do it for fun here.
Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah. You can do it. Like the other day when we met, we had we met over at Grounded. We have some coffee. Actually, I had chai tea. We have some coffee and chai tea. And I could tell when she was talking about cannabis, she'd kind of be like, yeah, so, like a little whisper. And it was really funny. I'm like, oh, yeah, she's from a legal state. Over here shouting about it. I was like, oh, yeah, cannabis this. And
like, lower your voice.
She's like, oh, my God, people are going to know. So, but yeah, I mean, it's great to have someone as passionate as you here, especially being in the industry.
Yes.
And being so willing to share, because some people just don't share their story. And some people are in the industry with the same thing. So maybe more people will come out and tell their story more, and we can get more of a support group going.
I probably overshare sometimes.
It's okay. I mean, it's no big deal. I mean, when it comes to medical stuff and stuff like this, I mean, I kind of feel the more the better. It's not like you took your shirt off. This is where my scar is, guys.
No, I did about a year ago. I did I was a body paint model.
Okay.
For that same charity organization for gin.
So you went back.
Oh yeah. So I went back, like, because it was, we should have just passed. We wanted to do something really big.
Yeah.
And so I was one of 6, I think. 6. Yeah. I was one of 6 body paint models. And so we were like at this gala, and there was like 500 people in the room.
Yeah.
And we just came out with our body paint on and walked through the whole room. Like, this was a lot less scary.
Yeah. Oh, okay. See, I told you. Yeah. She was telling me a little bit about that story, but you shared a little bit more now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I told her, I was like, it's not going to be that bad. Nothing close. We'll have a nipple conversation or two, but that's about it. So, but yeah, I appreciate you sharing. All this great information, all of this personal information too. It took a lot for you to just come out and be this vulnerable and share. And I thank you so much. And you did a great job. Thank you. Yeah. But that's all we have for topics today for this week, guys. And, this ends the breast cancer awareness episode of # Grassy Logic. First one ever.
Film on first.
Yes. Yeah. First. Film on first. I love that one. That's funny.
Yeah.
I don't have a pink shirt. I guess I should probably fix that at some point. But maybe next year I'll have a pink shirt, or sometime other on this episodes, because I have 2 or 3 episodes left before.
You can borrow this one if you do another episode next year.
I don't want to rip it. Fat man in a little coat situation. So I do have two things before I get off on this special episode that we had today. Two announcements. One is this week, Friday, Dark Matter is going to have their grand opening in Albuquerque. I will be there along with as well as the Cruces Craft guys. If you're going to be up there, come say what's up. Should be a good time. As you guys know, Dark Matter is actually from Oregon. They have some spots around the state, Sunland Park being one of the most popular ones, and here in Cruces being top crop. So now they're reaching up to Albuquerque, kind of doing what Cinder's doing, but backwards. So
I like those guys.
yeah. They seem like cool people, so I'll have to meet them someday. Also, the CCD, or the Cannabis Control Division, is also hiring an attorney. If you're an attorney, you're out of work, you're looking for work, you might find a good job over at the CCD. And if you love cannabis and you're an advocate and you're also an attorney, I would highly recommend you doing this, so that way we get good rules and we're not getting stupid stuff in the state. So that's the reason why I'm talking about this, because I hope somebody that's good gets that position. So it only helps us out in the long run. Anyway, thank you again, Mercedes, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, it was a great episode. Thank you for bringing that idea to me. I was kind of wondering. I was like, well, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I was like, I don't have boobs, and so you just came up at a perfect time, and I was like, yes, that's perfect.
Maybe it was meant to be.
Yeah, maybe it was meant to be. So thank you all again for watching this episode, this special episode. I'll be back again next week, and again, don't forget, at the end of this month, end of season 1, we'll be back in January with season 2. All right, see you guys next week. Shoots.